I'm an American. This is all I care about. All I care about is my culture and preserving my culture, which I view as uniquely Western and of European origin, quite frankly. And, there's 2% of America is Muslim. And I checked this morning and I was like, wow, that's like, there's like a new march in Dallas or Dearborn every single day where Muslim enclaves take over the entire city, right? And you can't move. And that's what 2%, that's like with 2% and zero assimilation. In many European countries, it's 10%, 15%, or 20%. And so my question for you, I think, like on the offset, is can Europe be saved? And what must be done?
Well, yes, Europe can be saved, but we need radically different policies to the ones that we've had for the past 30 years or so, maybe even longer. I mean, with the Save Europe Act, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. We want a full and total halt to non-Western immigration. That's like the first thing that needs to happen. The border needs to be closed, need to be secured. And we need to say no to immigration, both legal and illegal, by the way, because our demographic change is just really blowing out of the waters here. And if we want to really save Europe, we're going to need more than just closing the borders. We're also going to need an active reversal of the damage that's been done. And the only way that we can do that is through remigration. So those are, I would say, the two pillars really of what we're trying to achieve with the Save Europe Act. We're trying to build a grassroots movement to push our political establishment in that direction and to really take action. Because you were saying, look at the difference that it already made to America, having only 2, 3, 4% of your population be Muslim immigrants. Well, we are now nearing a reality where Europeans, native Europeans, are going to become a minority in their own homelands. And we're not talking in 200 years from now. We're talking 20 years from now. So we really need to take action now. And I think that everyone who's traveled to Europe in the past 10 years has seen with their own eyes, what has become of it. Europe has become a totally different place, really unrecognizable in many ways. Yeah. And for us, this is our homeland, right? We don't have another home. So it's an existential threat that we are facing. And the whole world now has seen it really graphically with those images coming out of Spain, coming out of Ceuta this weekend. But I mean, this is something that has been going on for a lot longer. Maybe people just haven't been so aware, or we haven't had images that were so graphic and so violent in nature, let's say. But these types of numbers of having thousands and thousands of young military-aged men come into our borders in a totally uncontrolled manner, that's nothing new. That's what we're trying to fight here.
What do you think? What is happening in Ceuta? Why is this happening? It is an obvious military invasion. It's obviously biological warfare.
Yes.
This is a Muslim replacement population that shouts Allahu Akbar, yes, as they storm the border, and they view it as a religious conquest of a very Catholic population. Mm-hmm. And then their actions, once inside of Ceuta, they are violent. They have committed robberies, I believe murder, but at the very least, many stabbings and lootings. And so they are here as a this is a military conquest. Am I wrong?
Well, it's absolutely an orchestrated invasion. I say orchestrated in the sense that there are multiple parties involved. Obviously, there were real reports coming out of Morocco that they pushed for this. They used a legal loophole where they swam officially to the coast of Ceuta, which would grant them the legal status of a refugee. So that, that was one of the things that they knew. And so they abused our system on purpose. But that's, of course, the other part of this is that our system is flawed, and flawed is even way too nice of a way to describe our system. We don't have a border in Europe. Okay. It's not being protected. And Sanchez, you mentioned it yourself earlier, he is legalizing hundreds of thousands. Actually, the real numbers will probably end up in the millions of illegal immigrants who came to Spain in the past decades. So, our own establishment is doing this to Europeans. They are betraying us. They are the ones, the real traitors here in this story, not necessarily the people coming even. I mean, they really aren't coming. And that's really important, I think, also to understand in this debate or in this event. They're not trying to reconquer a piece of land that they regard theirs. That's not what this is about. This debate shouldn't be dragged into the debate about colonialism. It's not that the Moroccans are saying, we want Ceuta for us. These young men are coming to Ceuta with the aim of going to the European mainland and then claiming our social welfare, replacing our people, and taking over control in our countries. That's the real aim. It's replacement migration in Europe itself. And Ceuta is the gateway.
Why is it morally justified for us to spend an obscene amount of money as the West to try and protect some indigenous tribe in, the rainforest that's found, right? Or North Sentinel Island, right? It's illegal to go contact this uncontacted tribe that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
And they spend a lot of money, making sure that people don't do that. A lot of money preserving other cultures, if you can call them that, but no time and no interest in protecting European culture.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it seems like the goal is the eradication of European culture and Western civilization as quickly as possible. Why is it not understood that white people of European heritage are less than 10% of the global population?
Mm-hmm.
So by every conceivable measure, we're the minorities, actually. Like it's not like we frame it from our own countries. It's like, say they're an oppressed minority. No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like people in Africa or in the Middle East or in Asia, like that's the vast majority of people on Earth.
Yeah.
Right? But there's like this massive disconnect there. Maybe you could expound
you're
on this.
Absolutely right. Like every single ethnocultural group in the history of the world is allowed to want to protect their ethnocultural continuity. Like nobody would be upset if you say Africa belongs to the Africans or Asia belongs to the Asians. But when we as Europeans say, hey, Europe belongs to the Europeans, Europe is not just a social construct, it's real. Europe is a continent with all these sovereign distinct identities, these distinct peoples that have a shared civilization, but are sovereign. That's what Europe is. And that's beautiful. That's rare. That's worth protecting. And we've created what I would argue the greatest civilization on earth. They say you can't do that. That's racist. And that's what we're trying to fight here, because that's obviously false. It's false. It's not at all bad. It is actually morally, I would say, just to want the land of your ancestors to remain that of your children. And it won't be with the policies that are going on right now. And, where this mind virus comes from, it's being taught in our universities. It's the same thing in America, of course. It is I think also an evil twisting of history where they abuse what happened in the Second World War and say that is the basis for the idea that all white people are evil, or that we have some sort of collective guilt that we need to make up for, and that nationalism is bad and it leads only to war, etc. And they use, I think, people's fear of being excluded or really targeted also by the establishment, because that is what happens in Europe when you speak out about this. You run the risk of being persecuted. Like you run the risk of being thrown in jail for what you say if you oppose immigration. It wouldn't be the first time. It has happened many times. I know many activists in Europe right now who are under investigation or either on trial. I myself have been banned from going to the United Kingdom. I have been targeted with my mercenary spyware on my phone. All of these things are very real and happen. And the establishment uses that to crack down on something that is totally natural and good, and that is wanting to protect what is yours and pass it on. And so we said, we need to do something. I was feeling rather hopeless, to be honest with you, a couple of months ago, thinking, wow, the numbers are not in our favor. Politics is moving way too slow. People are still afraid. What can we really do? I have a platform, and I heard you say earlier, having a platform is a privilege. I absolutely agree with that. And so I thought to myself, I can't just be making videos and talking about all the evil things that I see unfolding and the way that my civilization, my home, is being destroyed, and speak out in anger and sadness when we hear about another white European boy or girl that was killed at the hands of an illegal immigrant. I need to do something more concrete. And so I called Martin Zellner, who's, I would say, like a godfather really of remigration. If there's anyone in Europe who's been unfairly targeted by the media and by the establishment, it is him. But he's great guy, super motivated. And I said to him, we need to do something. Why don't we start a European Citizens Initiative? And so we are now trying to use the tools of the establishment of the European Union against them, and to unite patriots all around Europe behind this idea of wanting to close the borders for non-Western immigration and to start remigration. We're trying to force the European Commission to take a stance on that. And of course, they're doing everything in their power to shut us down. They've already rejected the registration of our act, but we're not going to give up. You know, we're in this because we know that this is an existential fight, and it has to be fought now or it will be too late.
Maybe this is a good time to just pop up the website right now, the SaveEuropeAct.com. You can go there. If you are an American, you can support them. I believe you can, if you're a European, you can sign. You have 700,000 and non-Europeans.
For any American who agrees with our views and who agrees that Europe is a civilization worth saving, you can sign up at this part, because this is our pre-campaign. Maybe I should have clarified that. This is our pre-campaign for the launch of a European Citizens Initiative, which is an official tool of the European Commission, where if we get 1 million signatures, the European Commission has to welcome us in their institution and listen to our proposal. Wouldn't that be good? You know, if I can sit in front of Ursula von der Leyen and say, it's done now, you're going to close those borders and you're going to send them back. That's what we want. So, but for now, any American who supports our cause, we would love for you to sign.
You can see here they're at 700,000 nearly signatures, and so they're well on their way. Please make sure that you are signing as well. And
you're on the website too, Benny. Thank you for that. You were one of our first honorary endorsers. So I think if you scroll down a bit, your face is on there, and we're really grateful for that.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Good. Well, obviously, I don't understand. I mean, I guess my next question is like, why? Like, why do this? Why do this to your culture? I mean, do they just hate white people? Do they hate Christians? I believe it has something more to do than just like melanin in the skin. I think it's more that they hate Christianity and the institutions and virtues of Christianity that hold into account a higher God than the government. Yeah. And so this is a way to reduce that, but it's going to backfire because you're bringing in people that don't assimilate, that are going to create their own governments and their own laws and their own courts. And we can see that they're already doing that, obviously. But if anything, like, is it a punishment, Eva? Like, what is it?
It's a punishment of people who don't deserve punishment, with the goal for those people in power to remain in power. And of course, then, you know, if you see yourself as God, which I think that many of these unelected bureaucrats in Brussels do, they certainly behave like it. You know, they haven't even been directly elected by the European people, but they behave like kings and queens. They decide for us what is right. They absolutely, in a diabolical way, also invert our values. They deny Christianity as the foundation of European culture. That's what the European Union did in their founding documents. They speak about European values always separate from Christianity, like as if they don't have anything to do with each other, like yet they are the very foundation of our civilization. So that's the type of person those are the people that we are dealing with. They indeed want to destroy everything that stands in their way of power, be it national identities, be it cultures, be it borders, be it God. That's what these people do.
Was there not and I try and follow this as closely as I can, was there not a relatively large victory for remigration inside of Brussels recently?
Yes, so the European Parliament is moving in the right direction. They actually recently adopted a directive on return hubs. So they are now slowly but surely moving in the direction where illegal immigration is going to be made a bit more difficult, but it's not nearly enough yet. We need something much more radical because obviously time is not on our side with this. We are really running out of the years. You know, this is something that once we become minorities in our own homelands, also things like democracy will not function the way that we were used to, as you could say, because democracy numbers game. And if you import a new voter base, which is obviously also one of the reasons why I think our establishment is pushing for replacement migration, well, then none of that really functions anymore. But, you know, the thing is, I think that the real change is going to come from the people. And that's what we're trying to do with this Save Europe Act, is create and build a grassroots movement. And it's working. I mean, we started 2 months ago. We have now almost 700,000 signatures, as you said. But more importantly, we have really an army of volunteers and activists who've already gotten active on the ground for the Save Europe Act. We were in 4 different countries protesting, signing people up for the act. Our activists were in Ceuta, like really protecting the border themselves. You know, we are doing what our establishment is unwilling to do, and that's protect our people. And I feel great hope from that. I'm really, really grateful for the people who have helped us, who are helping us, and also to God for this momentum, because it's clear that people want change, and I think we're going to deliver it for them by the grace of God.
I'm not particularly smart on this issue or any other, but I can follow the patterns, and there is a demographic death spiral that happens when the native populations of a place stop reproducing. And this is something that egalitarian and well-developed societies have found all throughout the histories of the world. You can see it in ancient Greece or ancient Rome. The people just stopped having babies, and that the politicians always panic and say, well, who's going to mine the coal? You know, who's going to carry the water? Who's going to clean whatever, right? Who's going to pick the fruit in in Nancy Pelosi terms? As they freak out and do the easy thing, which is bring in as many foreigners who are from the third world or underdeveloped places in order to try and supplement the population, instead of doing the hard thing, which is to incentivize family creation.
Yes.
From the native population who, again, if you go back to ancient Rome or ancient Greece, you can find these trends, and you can find these trends really very, very much like laid out and cataloged. And you can see that this was a huge problem. And so how is it, or why doesn't our leadership class realize that it's actual, like, the problem is you? Because I know why they're bringing it. Like, some of it's like they're all evil and they want us all to die. Some of it is like we want the GDP numbers to stay up, right? And so we need a bunch of new people, and our people aren't making new people. So let's bring in a bunch of people that breed, you know, like rabbits, and then we'll say that we have population growth instead of stagnation or decline, right? Because economy's in decline, nobody's going to invest in that, and so on. Sorry for the long question, but I think it gets to a point, which is, how do we incentivize our political leaders? Because Europe's seeing a massive population decline. You know, it's not great. You know, Europe's not at replacement numbers. America's just barely at replacement numbers. I think we're at like 2.1, but Europe's not. And so your leaders are panicking. And like, how do you incentivize native populations in these kind of advanced cultures to have more children? How do we push our political leaders to realize you're the problem, right, when it comes to this kind of stuff? And you need to incentivize more families.
I'm actually really glad that you brought this up, because it is one of the fallacies that still very much is being pushed and also lives in the minds of Europeans, because we've been told, indeed, if we do not bring in immigrants, then our civilization will die because we're not making children. The welfare state will come to die because, you know, obviously you need workers, and there are a lot of jobs that, let's say, native population Europeans don't want to do, like the bad jobs, right? The picking the fruit, as you said. So they
Nancy Pelosi said it, but yeah,
Nancy
sure.
Pelosi said, exactly. Well, I mean, obviously this, but they're saying this. But the problem is that it is a total fallacy. They are bringing in immigrants who do not work, but come here to make use and claim our welfare options. So, here in the Netherlands, it has become, for example, totally impossible for people of my generation to buy a house because the housing prices are just through the roof. Why? Well, obviously, our economy is another story, but mass immigration leads to less options for the native populations. There are less social benefits for the native people because the immigrants, they get everything with priority. So if you come in here from whichever country they claim they come from, because oftentimes they lie, they throw their passports away, they abuse our system, then they will get priority housing and not someone who's been waiting here for years. That person is going to end up living with their mom and dad till they're 30. That's not a great circumstance or not a great situation in which you can start a family, is it now? And, combine that with moral and cultural decay, which also, again, follows from mass immigration and, of course, the loss of God, which is something that they very much propagate. It is the most poisonous cocktail that you can think of, and it actually causes people to have less children. Throw a bit of, oh, you know what, having kids is bad for the climate in there, and it's complete, right? And so that is exactly what we see here. So the idea that you can solve that with mass immigration is ridiculous. You just add insult to injury. It only becomes worse. And so we really need to challenge that fallacy and that lie and say, no, also the wages are not going to get any better if we keep on importing really cheap labor and have people who come here illegally and have no papers and are willing to do those jobs. It's not going to get better in any way, shape, or form. I cannot mention or think of one single aspect that has been beneficial from the mass immigration from the third world that we have seen to Europe these past 2-3 decades. Not one. Zero.
Have you ever been to the third world? I mean, we use this as the 51st state fallacy, right? So America famously has 50 states. Europe has how many countries in Europe? I don't actually know. How many countries?
27 member states in the EU.
Okay.
So
27 EU member states. So, what we use all the time on this program is, would you take the actual nation that the people are coming from, the nation they built, Haiti, Somalia, Chad, right, Djibouti, would you take that nation, if that was the 51st state and you could travel to it, would you want to? Like, would you want that attached to the end of Florida, right? Or like South Carolina? Like, would you want that? Would you want Somalia taken as a landmass and a cultural mass and put into, would people travel there? Would they like it? Of course not. Of course not. You can go look at all of the statistics in Somalia, but number one for gang rapes, number one for cousin marriages, number one for child brides, number one for sectarian violence. That would be the state. It would be the least popular state in the country. We would fight maybe another civil war to kick it out, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're becoming now. That's what we're becoming. We are seeing those exact same things happening on our streets.
Why do you take the people from these places? Why do you separate it's not magic rocks, it's the people, right? The people create the nations. So when you bring the people here, you bring those problems into your countries, right?
Yes. And I refuse to think that our establishment didn't see that coming. Also, this has been happening for too long. The effects have been too visible and have been too detrimental for them to say, oh, we didn't know, or we didn't have the intent. At a certain point, you forsake that, right? You forsake the claim that you were not aware, that you were just trying to do the right thing. This is not the right thing. Us becoming a minority in our own homelands with all of the explosive violence, with the loss of our civilization, with the loss of our culture is not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. It needs to be reversed. And we need to do it now. We need to get active very, very, very fast. And I'm so glad, once again, I really feel renewed hope and fighting spirit with this platform that we've created with the Save Europe Act, because we didn't have any of it. The beauty of Europe, in that sense of having all these different countries with all these different peoples, different languages, it's our strength, but it's also our weakness when it comes to political mobilization. Because all these conservatives, all these nationalists, all these patriots, they keep to themselves. They think about rightly their own country first. But we as Europeans are facing the same existential threat, literally also because of things like the Schengen policy that you mentioned. Because if the migrants come into Spain or Italy or Greece, they can travel freely without any border control, without any checks, right to the country where they can claim the best social benefits. And that's what they do. That's what they do.
So okay, let's end on a positive note. Okay, so we've covered the bad.
Yeah.
How about the good? No. I mean, listen, it's the future of. I think about my own children. I have 4 little babies, and I think about that, and it's actually kind of wonderful. I know that there's incredible statistics on this. Actually, like maybe it's the Charlie Kirk, maybe it's Charlie's like lasting legacy. But everybody I know that's my age has 4 kids, or 5. It's like a lot. Like there's a lot of that going on, and it's solely of the right. The left in our country is a suicide cult. They are not. They're having 0 children. Yeah. The number to the left is like something like 0.07, child per couple, right on the left. And on the right, it's above replacement population. So I feel like the cultural, like we're doing good work culturally. I want to put rocket fuel on it, right? I want to make this supercharged. It's such a win-win. It's a win-win for us culturally. It's like a perfect gift to the things that like our side does, which is to start families, love God, make babies, right? And so I wonder what your thoughts are on this. I'm no policy writer, but I'm like, why not make your first home tax-free, for a young couple under like the age of, 30. Right, 100%. You're young, you're married. Why not do that? Like,
Hungary so you can get it home. Under Orban.
Why do we have to pay? Why not incentivize even more like the creation of children, like American children? Like you have to be an American citizen, but then you pay no taxes after like the 3rd child, right? So now you're above replacement population. Kids are expensive. They take all your time, and so like why not incentivize and say thank you to the people doing that instead of people just being like consumer parasites, right?
I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with it. We also incorporated that into the Safe Europe Act, actually. It is so important that you remove the pull factors from European social welfare systems for immigrants, and that you instead incentivize, the native population of Europe, the people whose ancestors have built this continent, who always had their home here, that they feel that they can start families without having the crushing weight of the government and the unsafety of their streets on their shoulders, because that's real. And Hungary did it. Hungary had those policies. You can do that. You can say, okay, if a woman has more than 2 children or 3 children, tax-free for the rest of her life, you can do that. It's all a question of political decision-making and willpower. And our political establishment doesn't have it. It doesn't have it. So I totally agree with you. I mean, in Europe, of course, our right wing also has higher birth rates than our left wing does. It's natural. It's because of what we believe in. But it's not as high as in America. I think that's once again can also be led back to the fact that we lack that civil society structure so much here. We have to rely on political parties. There is less sense of community. And exactly that is what we are trying to build with this Safe Europe Act, and say, no, it's not bad to want to remain a majority in your own homeland. It's great that you want to defend this Christian country of yours, this Christian continent, your heritage, and that you want to be outspoken about your love for it. That's the way that we started the preamble of this act that we proposed. It is motivated by our deep sense of love and responsibility for our heritage. Is the first sentence. That's why we do this. It's not hatred of others, as they always try to claim it is. No, it is love for what our ancestors created, for what God has granted us, and we want to treat it well and protect it and pass it on.
It's so beautiful. It rings so true. And of course, then when it rings true, you don't have to lie to tell everyone about it. Maybe they've done it in Europe. I'm not sure. I don't speak most of the languages. But nobody in our country, of course, has had problems with open borders and third world migration, which is, just insane. Like, I think something like 70% of Mexicans live in America. It's insane. It's obscene. Americans, whenever getting a chance to vote, we vote that down. Even in California, Ava, they said, no, we don't want to give illegals health care. Like judges have to like step in and then get rid of the will of the voters. In California, they say we want to close the borders. Nobody, it's not popular. Nobody's ever voted for it. No politicians have ever explained to us. No politician's ever gone out and explained to us why we would have an open door for Somalis in this country. Like nobody's ever made that case. Nobody's ever tried because they know it's indefensible, I think. Or the third, or just I'm picking on Somalis, but like the entire third world. Nobody's made that case. And eventually eventually those lies, the truth comes due. And we see this, of course, in the election of Donald Trump. We see this in the like total rejection of the open borders policies. It's become so toxic. I'm sure Democrats, I'm not sure how much they're going to want to test it or try it again. But you're seeing that also in Europe. And I think that's like, again, I want to just end here on a final question, but like an uplifting note, that you are seeing populist and nationalist movements skyrocketing in popularity in a lot of European countries. And perhaps the future of Europe looks a little brighter than maybe some of the headlines might.
Well, I'm always hopeful. You have to be, right? I mean, there's too much good in this world. There are too many people that have fighting spirit left in their soul to despair. And despair is not going to lead us anywhere good anyway. That's what we keep on saying. Even if it looks bleak, even if you feel that what you do doesn't make a difference, it does. It does. Speaking out in your friend circle, to your families. With the Save Europe Act, we've structured it in such a way that it doesn't matter what your position in society is. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter. You can choose your level of involvement, tailored to what you are willing and what you can do. It can be as little, but as impactful as just signing it. You can sign up as a volunteer. You can download our stickers and posters. You just slap a sticker with "Send them back. Remigration saves Europe" onto, I don't know, a sign in your city. Those are little things of civil disobedience and of love for your own country, your own identity, your own people that you can do on a daily basis. And that's what we need. We shouldn't sit back and hope and wait for politicians to save our lives. I mean, most of them have created this mess, to be honest with you. So it's now, it's not the mess that we made, but it's ours to solve, because we have to do it indeed for our children. I do this because I want my son to grow up in his own countries. He's Italian and Dutch, so he's two. He has both, I would say, both the best countries of Europe in one. And I want him to feel safe and happy and at home in both. And that's why we fight. It's for them. Because for them, it's going to get, if we think we have it bad now, if we think that our situation is dire, or that we are unsafe in our own streets, which we really are, then think about how it's going to be for them. I get shivers thinking about that. I get emotional thinking about that, because it worries me so much, but it also motivates me to do what we are doing right now.
Yes.
More than anything else.
That's exactly right. Islam means submission. It means conquest. They've wanted to conquer Europe. They've tried to conquer Europe multiple times over the last couple thousand centuries. And now we've just suddenly allowed them to do it. And not, it's like only been 20 years that this has been going on.
Look, it's not going to be easy, but it wasn't easy for the Spanish to drive out the Moors either, and they did it anyway. So I think we can do it too.
Yeah. Yes. Bravo and cheers and wonderful. And yes, could you imagine? I mean, yeah. There's a verse in Proverbs that says a blessed generation leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And so when you are making policies today, when you're thinking about what the fight is today, think about like your grandchildren and what kind of country do you want your grandchildren to grow up in, a third world ghetto where there's a Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day and they're forced to submit to Islam? Like, is that a good birthright for your children? Like, you failed actually if you've done that, and you've cursed your children, in fact, and that's immoral based on our scriptures. So thank you, Ava.
Amen.
Let's put the website one more time, and the URL on screen if we can, and make sure that everybody is signing up. And I'm very thankful that I was able to pronounce your last name correctly. I practiced it a couple times before the show went live.
That. Thank you.
Yeah. So great.
I do.
And yeah, Godspeed. This is the fight for Western civilization. You've always been on the front line, and we're appreciative. for you.
Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it too. Really, really do.
Follow Ava right here and remigration. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.